How do you not go with a guy like Stephon Diggs? I guess I would have to ask the Dallas Cowboys. How do you not go with a guy like Stephon Diggs? They just get rid of him, right?
No.
The
But
Buffalo Bills.
Welcome to the most unprofessional sports program in the world, The Bobby Drew Show, your trusted source for everything sports, with your sports experts, David, Brian, and Bobby Drew. Let's go.
Welcome into the Bobby Drew Show, everybody. I am Bobby Drew. We got myself here. We have David over there, and we got Brian on that side. Welcome into the show. We really should change the intro from your sports experts to your fantasy football experts because we have entered into fantasy football season. But we would be amiss if we did not give our good friend Brian credit for calling the NBA Finals. He got it to the T, the team and the game that they won. So congratulations, Brian, on that. That's why he's the sports guy, and we are sports experts. Brian, I'll give you got 3 words. Anything you want to say? He can't handle that. He's got wheels turning. He wants to say so much about basketball, but we'll have to save that for next season. Oh,
I told you.
There you go. I couldn't think of a more Brian statement than I told you.
It's fun to be right, isn't it? It's fun to be right.
Matchups always matter.
That is true. Matchups do matter, and we're entering into fantasy football season, so there's going to be a lot of matchups this year. I'll face Dave. I'll face Brian. They're going to face each other. Last season, I ended up in the final matchup, the one that matters, the Super Bowl fantasy football champ, right down there. So you can listen to all of our advice, but I mean, I am the fantasy football champ, reigning fantasy football champ, but we don't want to talk about that too much. So we do have drafts coming up, all right? Drafts are going to come up very fast. If you are drafting in the month of July, there's something wrong with your league.
Yeah.
Get out. Don't stay there. Get out of that league. We usually draft the Saturday before the opening Thursday night game, which for me, I like that because I can wait to the last minute for injuries, all of that. So I was telling you guys before we started here, there was a gentleman that I came in contact with, and my heart goes out to him. He said that they drafted super early. It had to be months in advance. He drafted Cooper Kupp as his first overall pick, and then like 2 weeks later, dude got injured and missed. What did he miss? 8 weeks, 9 weeks, or something like that. Don't do that. All right, guys, do not do that. So we have compiled a list of offenses that we're looking at that have good potential. Now, we cannot predict injuries. So last season, I think everybody was looking at the Jets offense and saying, I want a piece of that offense because they looked good on paper. But Dave, do you want to tell us what happened? I'm sure you would love to tell us what happened.
Are we talking about an offense that looked good on paper and then the quarterback tripped over a blade of grass and was out for the rest of the season? Is that what happened? The Jets? Oh, yeah, that hurts, man, because actually, even as a guy that can't stand Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason, I don't know why, I was excited to see how the Jets would do last year. And it was kind of a bummer. I hated to see that happen, but I got over it pretty quick. But yeah, injuries will mess your whole season up for real.
Yeah, they will. We had Joe in our league last year drafted Nick Chubb first round, and then that guy
he took his leg off and used it as a pencil.
Yeah. They were doing geometry with that. They were trying to make 90-degree angles with that guy's leg.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Knees don't bend that way.
And Joe was having a good season until that happened. He wasn't able to recover. Poor guy. Well, anyways, so we're going to talk about some offenses here that we like, they have pieces that we like. So since we were just talking about the Jets, I think in good fashion, how we began talking about them last season, the New York Jets, as of right now, Aaron Rodgers is set to come back. All right. It looks like he's fully recovered physically. It's a mental game now, getting past that, going 100%, which I would be scared too. But this offense is crazy, all right? If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, you got Rodgers, you got Breece Hall. They picked up Mike Williams. They got Garrett Wilson, and they got Tyler Conklin in their tight end. And then for me, if I had to pick a sleeper wide receiver, I'm looking at Allen Lazard. And the reason being is because you look at Lazard when he was in Green Bay with Rodgers. Lazard was a nobody. Rodgers made that guy a threat in the Green Bay offense.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, without Rodgers, Allen Lazard was nothing. And they were talking about even possibly dropping him. So I think that they're going to have that chemistry. But that's just me. If you guys had to pick, let's say it's coming down to it, would you rather have, knowing Mike Williams' injury history, would you rather have Mike Williams or Allen Lazard if you had to pick a wide receiver?
Well, I would say Allen Lazard because already Mike Williams, they're already saying is questionable for week 1.
Oh.
I mean, it's because of his ACL. But to be fair, Aaron Rodgers is also questionable for week 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
He's questionable for week 2. He's questionable for the second half of game 1.
He's play-by-play.
Yeah. Brian, what would you say, Lazard or Mike Williams?
I wouldn't touch Mike Williams. I would take Lazard. I'm
really
not that guy yet. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully it's not a repeat. The Jets did look good on paper last season. Let's hopefully they can get past the first game completely healthy.
Let's be real. I'm a Patriots fan. I don't care what happens to the Jets. I hope they all break their legs.
Oh, dear Lord.
You do know what Jets stands for, right?
Jets. I don't know.
Just end their season.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, see that?
Oh, man. Wow. Well, I'm excited. Me being a Packers fan, I'm excited to see Rodgers. I hope Rodgers is able to at least.
Oh, Rodgers isn't a Packer.
I know.
Stop.
I know.
No, you're not excited to see Rodgers.
I'm excited. To see Packers Jets Super Bowl.
Okay.
Here we go. Here's another team.
Gonna win the NBA championship.
Here's another team. All right, Brian, you want to take us through what do you see in the Houston Texans? If you had to pick any player on the Houston Texans on their offense, who would you want from the Houston Texans offense this season?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon. That's interesting.
Running back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're skipping over C.J. Stroud.
Here's the reason
why. Stephon Diggs.
They have wide receivers everywhere.
That's true.
So who's coming out of the backfield to catch a little dump off and running 25 yards? Joe Mixon he's a pass catching back. He did it in Cincinnati. I'm telling you, because with all those receivers plus Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon's gonna be a safety net for C.J. Stroud. You got a running back that's proven.
Yeah, and that's the kind of, Joe Mixon's coming out of an organization that was stacked on receivers.
Yeah.
Also.
And too, he's upset because they basically gave up on him. Like they even stopped using him near. So he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder to prove himself. If someone put it here, you can take anybody you want on the Texans. I'm taking Joe Mixon. Like it's not even a question for me. Because he's a runner, but he's a receiver, and he is a safety net for C.J. Stroud. I think he's going to be a top 3 running back this year.
You look at who they had Devin Singletary last season, and let's be honest, Singletary is not as good as Joe Mixon. So they're improving their running back. So I'm looking at the stats right now. The Houston Texans running backs combined had an average of 7 points per game, 7 fantasy points per game last season. They were ranked 25th out of all 32 teams. So Joe Mixon should definitely improve that. Dave, I'll give you the wide receiver question. You have Stephon Diggs, you have Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. If you had to pick one of those wide receivers for your fantasy to be your wide receiver one, who are you picking?
See, here's the deal. Nico Collins and Tank Dell, they've already got the time in with CJ Stroud. They're familiar, but how do you not go with a guy like Stephon Diggs? I guess I would have to ask the Dallas Cowboys. How do you not go with a guy like Stephon Diggs? They just get rid of him, right?
No.
No.
The Buffalo Bills.
I mean, the Buffalo Bills. What did I say? Why am I ragging on the Dallas
His
Cowboys?
brother plays for Dallas.
You're thinking of Trayvon Diggs.
Yeah.
Oh, listen.
But the Dallas Cowboys
late right now. I'm half asleep.
What are you talking about?
You got to go. You got to go with Stephon Diggs.
I think so. Stephon Diggs. I can pull up his stats real quick, but you can make a case that why didn't the Dallas Cowboys go after Stephon Diggs? They did get rid of Michael Gallup, so they did have a spot to fill in their wide receiver room. Stephon Diggs ended last season as the wide receiver 8 on the season, which is absolutely crazy. He had 160 targets, 107 catches, which is a 67% catch rate, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Now, if you would have asked me if Stephon Diggs ended in the top 10 last season, I would have said no.
Right.
But
really?
Yeah, he to me, just going through each week by week, I didn't think he did that well. But in a poor offense last season, they were not explosive at all. They were not clicking. Josh Allen was struggling. I don't know how. I think Josh Allen threw more touchdowns to the defense than he did Stephon Diggs in the season. That's just my thinking. But all right, so Dave, you said you would take Diggs. Brian, you said you would take Joe Mixon. If I had to pick, I like Dalton Schultz. I like the tight end. There's not a lot of good tight ends to pick from in the league. So I would go with that because if there's going to be a dump off, if Joe Mixon's not there, then Dalton Schultz, he can also stretch the field too. I think he's a mismatch for a lot of linebackers. I'll take Dalton Schultz. Well, let's move on.
I have a question about quarterback though. Would CJ Stroud be a good pick for your QB1, considering all the weapons he has on offense to spread the ball around? Good for points for him. It doesn't matter who your quarterback's throwing touchdowns to or who's getting catches because your quarterback's getting points. I see CJ Stroud being, fantasy-wise, doing good.
My only thing is he's not a running quarterback. I don't think he ran much. That's the thing, too. It depends on if you had another quarterback that was a running quarterback or him, like C.J. Stroud or Jalen Hurts, C.J. Stroud or Lamar Jackson. C.J. Stroud or Stroud or Brock Purdy.
Even, don't get me started on Brock Purdy. Even what's that guy's name that plays for Buffalo that used to
Josh
throw
Allen.
Josh Allen's a great running quarterback, but guys like Jalen Hurts, the rules have changed. He's not going to be getting the fantasy points, that easy 6 points for the tush push. Yep. Kelsey's not there, and I just learned, I didn't know they outlawed
it's banned.
The brotherly shove. I didn't hear that yet, so that's news to me. Hey, I'm learning stuff.
Yep.
So those 3 quarterbacks that you guys brought up, are the 4 quarterbacks. So Josh Allen ended number 1 in fantasy football. Jalen Hurts was number 3. Brock Purdy was number 6. And then all the way down at number 11 was C.J. Stroud. So that would go to the point of what Brian was making. When it comes to fantasy football, when it comes just to watching football, oh yeah, C.J. Stroud is an explosive quarterback because he has so many weapons. But when you're able to not only throw for touchdowns, but you get those running touchdowns within the 10, 5-yard line, whatever it may be, those really add up really quick as well. So I would, if I had to pick between Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud, because of the lack of weapons in Buffalo, I'm taking Josh Allen because he's going to run the ball and he's getting points every yard he runs. So
okay, yeah, I see. So fantasy-wise, if I'm just
that's what you have to think about.
Yep, I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah. So when you guys, if you're listening, when you guys are drafting for quarterbacks, you got to put football away. It's not about who. It's
Not
not
about
about
real
who.
life football. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about who could throw the ball the best or who has the best wide receivers. Who cares?
Right.
Do they run the ball? That's the question.
Yep.
All right, so let's go. We got the Texans. That's going to be an explosive offense and a lot of options to pick from. So somebody's got to get the ball, so it's going to be one of them. And then we'll talk about the Bears for a second. My arch nemesis. I hate the Bears. I hate the Bears even more now because they actually have a talented team. So they have two rookies, and Caleb Williams as the quarterback, and Rome Odunze. He is one of the wide receivers, and that guy is electric. He was in the first round for a reason. They got veteran wide receiver Keenan Allen, and they still have DJ Moore there, which DJ Moore last season he had a game. He had like a 53-point game, I think.
Yeah.
Like that. And they also have DeAndre Swift in the backfield, and they have Cole Kmet as a tight end. That's on paper. This is going back to the Jets thing. On paper, this is a phenomenal team. So, Brian, when you look at the Bears, what are you getting from that roster? What were you going to target from there?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not targeting one single Chicago Bear. I just think the production is like the Dolphins last year. You could pick any Dolphin and they were going to produce. I just think there's too many egos on the Bears, and it's going to start with the quarterback. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a head case, and I just think there's going to be too many. I think DJ Moore is going to lose catches, and he's going to be upset. So I'm staying away from that. Maybe if there's someone left in like round 9 or 10, I might grab somebody, but I'm not drafting a Bear.
Dave, if you had to pick between Keenan Allen and DJ Moore from this offense, who are you going after?
I don't even know how to answer this question with a rookie quarterback. I mean, I don't know who they're going to connect with, but I mean, DJ Moore he's the number one wide receiver. I don't know if that's the smarter choice over Keenan Allen, but I don't know, man. I kind of feel like with Brian, if I need a third running back at the very end of my draft, I might pick DeAndre Swift, but I don't know. It depends on who's left on the board. I'm not picking anybody on the Bears over every other option out there. It would be late in the draft before I pick anybody on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to think. So Keenan Allen last year, he was the only wide receiver on the Chargers, and he had 150 targets. DJ Moore was the only wide receiver on the Bears, and he had 136 targets. Those two numbers are going to drop significantly because now they're both on the same team. So neither one of them is getting that many targets this season. I can guarantee that. So let's go through some other teams. If I had to pick, I wouldn't pick anybody from the Bears because the Bears are still the Bears until they prove otherwise. I mean, last season they came out, they gave us their best shot, and they got creamed both times. So I'm not even worried about the Bears. But here we go. Let's see. We'll give this question to Brian. Brian, real quick, the 49ers, are they the same? And if they are not the same, one player from that offense, who would you take?
They're not the same. I think they're better because of the guy under center, Brock Purdy. He's got another year under his belt. I think Brock Purdy's going to surprise people. But I'm still taking Deebo Samuel.
Deebo.
I can't blame you one bit. Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
If you have the first pick in the draft,
Mm-hmm.
who are you picking?
Not CMC.
But
I'm letting everybody out there know, yes, you did hear it first. But I'm not telling you who I would pick because then that would give everything away. I mean, that's, I'm in this league. But I'm not drafting CMC.
I guarantee you the first pick in our draft this year is going to be CMC.
It is. It's going to be probably in 90% of the drafts.
And
Andrew, come week 4, we know what's going to happen.
Bobby Drew won the Super Bowl last year. He's the fantasy football champion because of that pick.
The first year he didn't get hurt. Yep.
But is it gonna happen again? I don't know. I think the 49ers, nothing as far as everything's like the same. The core is the same, like the people are the same as far as that starting group. But yeah, another year for Brock Purdy. A full season under his belt, went to the Super Bowl. You know, that he's going to have something to prove again this year.
Yep.
Even more than he did last year.
Here's some homework for everybody. Go back till 2018 till now and tell me if the running back one from that year was the running back one the next year.
Yeah, it's probably not ever.
Nope.
Do you pick Brock Purdy as your QB1 or QB2 on your fantasy team? Forget anywhere in the draft. I'm not talking about early, late, middle, whatever. Do you pick Brock Purdy?
If I don't have Deebo Samuel on my team, Brock Purdy would be my quarterback. If I couldn't draft Deebo, Brock Purdy put up some crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And he's just better. And we all know that because Josh had him on our team last year. And every time I played Josh, Brock Purdy had like a game out of his mind. Every time I played them, both times I played him. And then in the playoffs, like Brock Purdy went for like almost 35 or 40.
All right, Brian. Let's do a test here. This is a quarterback test for you, all right?
Okay.
Brock Purdy or Trevor Lawrence?
Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy or CJ Stroud?
Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson?
I cannot stand Lamar Jackson. Brock. I'll take Brock Dirty before I took Lamar Jackson.
All right, last one. This is the last test.
I know where you're going.
Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes?
Sorry, Brock. I'm taking Patrick.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think
for 1 week, right? This is not the whole season.
This is your draft. So we're talking about who you're drafting.
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. I made a mistake. Dave, Brock Purdy.
I was going to say, I don't think
Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years he's gone down.
Yeah.
Brock
So fantasy-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I got their stats right here. So Brock Purdy ended the season last season as QB6 for fantasy football. Patrick Mahomes ended as QB8.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Brock Purdy had 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes had 27 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. So, and Brock Purdy also beat him out in the yards and completion percentage as well. So, yes, Brock Purdy, he was a full quarterback better than Patrick Mahomes last season.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, Dave.
I'm so happy right now. That just goes to show you. Listen, not to mention the 49ers are going to be good until they got to pay Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
then it all falls apart. Yep.
Yeah, because right now, Bobby Bonilla is making more money a year than Brock Purdy.
And he just got paid again, baby.
And he hasn't,
July 1st, Bobby Bonilla Day.
He hasn't played for the Mets in what has it been, like 20 years?
Yep. Yep.
And Dave, that's a very good point. And listen, another reason why the 49ers are not the same, you can tell me it doesn't matter all you want, but it does matter. Brandon Ayuk with these contract talks being traded, that's a locker room distraction. I think it's going to affect his gameplay. I think it's going to affect things, maybe not first week, but later on in the season. That's not a good thing you want to have hovering around the team as the season goes on. Shameless plug here. Do you know who ended better than Brock Purdy in fantasy football and quarterbacks?
Jordan Love.
Yes. Jordan Love was number 4. We won't go through his stats, but I just had to throw that in there.
Hold on. You want to know why Jordan Love ended up better than Brock Purdy, Dave? Because Jordan Love doesn't have a running back that he could trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really. CMC took points away from Purdy. I mean, if you look at the running backs, I mean, that's why. And right now, here you go. Ready? Jordan Love or Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm taking him.
I thought Brock Purdy's got all the weapons.
That's what I'm saying. And he's just smarter. I trust him. Like
I think
trust
he's
him not to make mistakes.
I think he's way too underrated, and nobody is going to give that Mr. Irrelevant any credit until he wins a Super Bowl, and then they won't even give him the credit then because they'll have to win another one.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Green Bay the Jordan Love stats and Brock Purdy stats are almost identical. But Jordan Love had one more game because they were playing the last game to get into the playoffs. So he had one more game, and he needed that one more game to compare to Brock Purdy. So fantasy-wise, and now that Jordan Love has two good running backs, and Josh Jacobs and the rookie Marshawn Lloyd, you can make the argument that Jordan Love may not be throwing the ball as much, but Josh Jacobs is a good pass catching running back. So we'll see how that plays out.
So talking about the Green Bay Packers then, and is that going to help the fact that they're a better team and they've got two solid running backs now? Is that going to affect Jordan Love's fantasy output? Because he's handing the ball off more.
Yes. So I think when you look at the Packers offense, and you got Jordan Love, obviously you got Marshawn Lloyd. He'll probably be the RB2. Josh Jacobs there as well. You have Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and then you have Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft as the tight ends. That is a young roster full of talent. There's a lot of talent there. Honestly, for me, the wide receiver room is scary for fantasy because even last season, it was almost like they took turns. Like they were like trying to confuse the defense. Like one wide receiver had a lights out week, and then he was hot topic on the waiver wire, and then he wouldn't get nothing the next game. Some other wide receiver would get it. I think with adding Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, we had Aaron Jones last season, but that's all we had. And when he was injured, we had to solely rely on the passing game. So, man, Jordan Love, he also did run the ball. Let me pull up his running stats as well. So he only had 4 rushing touchdowns, not a lot at all, 247 rushing yards. Nothing crazy. He does have that mobility, but he had a crazy wide receiver room. So the Packers offense, I think in real football terms, is going to be really good. But fantasy-wise, I'm kind of staying away from it. I'm scared. Like I said, I'm scared to have one wide receivers because there's 4 of them and they can all have a good week, or one of them has a good week any week. You just don't know when. The only players that I'm looking at that I may go with would be Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd as a late RB2. Like if it was in a late round, I'd take that maybe. But Luke Musgrave, I like Luke Musgrave in the tight ends. If I needed a tight end too, or if he was there in the late rounds, I would pick him. Do you guys have anybody? What would be your take on the Packers offense fantasy wise?
For me, I'm looking at a Packers wide receiver as a bench stash for one of my wide receivers having a bye week. And then and here's what I would look at too is matchups. Like I would look at schedule matchups for the teams. This is how I do my draft, and to see who I'm hoping I might get as a receiver. Who would the Packers be playing that week, and how good are their defensive backs against wide receivers? I don't want to put somebody in that's got, I'm not going to put a Packer in if they're playing somebody who's got great D-backs and safeties, so that's what you got to look at too in your draft. You got to actually think about, okay, if I get somebody, where's my buy fall on? And then if I'm going to draft this one, where does their team stack up against their opponent in real football? Yeah, you actually really should do that much research when you're making the draft. You do have enough time. You got to think about real life matchups, but then fantasy wise, when I throw them in there, is it going to be a good matchup or is it a waste of a pick?
Dave, if you had to pick one of these Green Bay wide receivers between Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Dontavian Wicks, which one are you taking?
Do I have to?
Yeah, just one. Just pick one.
There's 2 I would definitely take.
Doubs. Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah.
It is.
Do I have to pick 2?
No,
No, you just pick one of them. But no, Dobbs or Watson would be who I would go with. Dobbs, Spitzer, and Watson is the big kid. No, they're good. That's a good pick, Dave. That's not wrong.
Yeah, I think the Green Bay is a team I like to root for when I'm watching a game on TV. I think, but when it comes to just for exactly what you said, for fantasy wise, it's like they've got. You're gonna be frustrated because Brian, when you pick one of these guys for your bench, you're gonna look at him and say, "Oh my gosh, this guy had scored 35 fantasy points this week," and then you put him in the next week and he gets 4.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? It's gonna be that kind of a frustrating deal.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So Jaden Reed for the Green Bay Packers, Jaden Reed out of that group ended as the top wide receiver, and the reason why is he was healthy like 90% of the season. So he averaged 13.6 points per game. Number 2 off of that roster was Romeo Dobbs at 10.3 points per game. He did play all 17 games, but he was not completely healthy. But overall, out of the whole NFL in fantasy football, the number 1 wide receiver group on average points per game was the Green Bay Packers with a total of 35 total points across the board. Wow. So,
for how many receivers though? 4?
All 4 receivers.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. Christian Watson had a lot of hamstring injuries last season. They say that they found the root cause of it and they sent him to a specialist. He's supposed to have it fixed. We shall see. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. We're just getting started with fantasy football season. We have a lot more content that we're going to do. We're going to try to upload at least 2 videos a week. We covered the Jets offense. I wouldn't even say we covered it. We talked about. We could really dive in if we really wanted to. But we're just giving a broad spectrum, a broad look at these offenses throughout the NFL teams to get us ready for the draft. So we got the Jets we went over the Texans, the Bears, the 49ers, the Packers. Our next video, what we'll cover, we're going to look at the Titans, we're going to look at the Chiefs, we're going to look at the Lions and the Ravens and the Bengals. Those will be our next 5 teams that we're going to cover. They all have good pieces that we all want to look into. So we'll have to see which ones we have a player on each offense that we want. All right, before we end right here, everything looks good on paper. All right, we're talking about fantasy football. If you guys had to pick one player that you're going to call out to be a sleeper on the season, who are you picking?
I need to think about it. Brian, you go first.
This is a big one. This is a big question.
I'm gonna pick a running back for the Bengals and Zach Moss. I just think he's gonna show up and he's gonna show out. I believe it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick a quarterback, and it's gonna be Baker Mayfield.
I knew it. I knew it.
It's not because I'm a Bucs fan.
Homer.
No, hang on. He showed some of this last year.
Yeah.
Because Philip picked him up in our league, and I'm thinking, why in the world did you pick up Baker Mayfield? Give me a break. And he did good for him. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Cool.
We're talking about sleepers, which means nobody even really knows.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. If Chris Godwin can catch the ball and it doesn't drop everything, then Baker Mayfield will do real good this year.
Well, Dave, fantasy football-wise, Baker Mayfield was better than C.J. Stroud last season, so you have that. I'm going to go with my pick that I mentioned earlier. I think Allen Lazard is going to be a sleeper in the wide receiver room. That's just that's a deep sleeper for me. I mean, that's a risk I'm taking to say that, but I see the correlation there between having Rodgers back. As long as I'll put an asterisk next to that one. As long as Rodgers is healthy, Allen Lazard is going to be a sleeper.
It all relies on Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. It does. It sure does. All right, y'all. Well, we covered 3, 4, 5 teams tonight. Next video, we'll cover another 5 teams. We're going to be your go-to fantasy football place, sports, whatever you want to call it. We're going to place to be for fantasy football. Anything you guys want to say before we're out?
Good night.
Dave's going to bed. It's past his bedtime.
All right, falls.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Make sure you follow us on social media at The Bobby Drew Show. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and, of course, on YouTube as well. Check us out. Give us a follow, like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments who your sleeper is for the season.
Go Celtics.
Go
Peace.